And now, the survival show that once survived shaving with a butter knife. In this episode, Jonathan joins us for our annual super random Pile of Prepper Shit gear show. We'll discuss gear we love and things you should stay away from. Howdy, and welcome to In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 158. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. Jonathan, it is sad that it is now a rare pleasure to have you on the show, but like recently you've been on the show a couple times, so this is exciting.
It is exciting, and it is sad. But I also did the Google Hangouts, so I think I'm going to be more and more active again now that Leon's in the world. He's getting a little older, he has a set bedtime, and my work schedule is starting to normalize.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, it was a very fun surprise to have you on the Armada Google Hangout the other night, our virtual meetup.
Yeah, it was a blast. Everybody on there was awesome. The Armada is just a good group of people.
I couldn't agree more. Which, hey, listeners, if you think the show gives you value, you should see what we do for the ITRH Roving Horde Armada. Check it out today at itrh.net. Just a few examples of what members get. Access to episodes the Sunday night before they air publicly. Encrypted forums to connect with like-minded people in a private fashion. An invitation to the secret ITRH Armada Facebook group so you can chat about survival all day long with other ITRH listeners. Access to every episode ever produced by ITRH, including a special one that was never aired publicly. A free copy of the book, Owning Your Survival. Access to a 1-hour emergency kits for bugging out and bugging in class with special downloads and checklists. Plus, I'm adding new bonuses about every other month at this point. Visit itrh.net today and become a member. You'll be helping the show stay safe and sound. Today, we have an exciting show for everyone, not just the Armada. It is a long overdue, super-ass random gear show, which we're trying to make an annual thing now. And because of all my shenanigans going on recently, I was trying to get this out for the end of December, and that's really what I'll be shooting for in the future. So we're a little late with this show, but I think it'll still be good. You and I have lots of random gear in our piles of prepper shit to talk about.
None of it's random. It's all awesome and amazing, and random.
Well, some of it's not awesome, and I think that's going to be the fun part is
True.
The things we didn't like, and some of them we agree and disagree on, which is always fun. To start off with, I want to start with the big one that is more recent, which is Ted Kople's book, which actually, yes, that Ted Kople, the journalist Ted Kople, he came out with a book, Lights Out, a Cyberattack, a Nation Unprepared, Surviving the Aftermath. If you don't like spoilers, of course, this is going to be a bad show because there's going to be about 3 or 4 books we're going to talk about here. So you may want to skip ahead, but I think you'll find our takes interesting. The first part about this book that I do want to point out was not in the book. It was the extraordinarily slimy way in which Ted Kople's people contacted me initially to help them promote the book. And I'll wrap it up in one statement, which was basically they wanted us to use the show and all of our social media and every other part of our resources to promote the book. And I said, be happy to give y'all some shouts out there once I've read the book. But it would really be best if Mr. Kople was on the show to actually tell us about his book, because that is what we are about, is the show. No, he's much too busy promoting his book, was the answer.
Yeah, what kind of answer is that? I mean, seriously.
As someone who used to be the PR and marketing director for a multi-time best-selling author, I can tell you, whoever was doing the PR, the young woman must have been brand new, and I kind of let her know that in so many words, and then just stopped speaking to them. That was really slimy. I really didn't appreciate it. The book itself is extremely well written, as you would expect from Ted Kople. One of the coolest things about the book is that the audio version of it was actually him. So if you liked Ted Koppel, you liked the way he spoke, you liked the way he presented things, which I did, it was a really cool experience. It points out a tremendous amount about what's wrong with our grid and how we're vulnerable to a cyber attack. And most people listening to this show are probably familiar with the book 1 Second After. It's an old enough book. It's very popular. It's basically the United States gets hit by an EMP and wipes out our grid. This is a similar kind of book, but studying it in the pretense and not in a fictional, in more of a journalistic way than 1 Second After did, and from the angle of a cyber attack. It's fun to listen to it because throughout the book, he goes to the government. What are you doing about it? And it's this big bureaucratic mess, and they're kind of pointing fingers at private industry. And then he goes to private industry, and it's kind of a big giant mess. And they're pointing fingers at government and everything else. And you hear him kind of waking up as a prepper and realizing just how screwed up things are and how vulnerable the grid is in general. And he does mention the book 1 Second After a few times. I was very disappointed that at no point in the book does he have a sit down with Dr. Forstchen, the author of 1 Second After, even though he mentions 1 Second After a few times in the book. So that was a little disappointing, but overall it was really quite fascinating. It was really what you would expect to find in his show when he was still on the air, where they're just investigating a problem. There's never really a resolution. There's no advice given. It's sort of inferred that you should prepare. There is a lengthy section towards the end of the book about the Latter-day Saints, which I still kind of don't understand how he got there exactly, since he was never really giving any solutions to anything. I was blown away by that part of the book, just learning how prepared and how much of a well-oiled, prepared machine the Latter-day Saints have backing them up. I don't think they would appreciate me saying this, but reading about it seriously gave me prepper wood. It was amazing.
So was it an entertaining book or and I'm not necessarily separating the two, but it's this idea of, was it a book, an informational book, or entertaining, or both?
It was both.
Okay.
It was definitely both. It wasn't entertaining in that Ted Koppel has amazing jokes and suspense or anything like that, but it was entertaining in that it was presented well. It was good information. There wasn't any information in there. You didn't read a chapter and gone, if I was editing this book, I would have cut the chapter. Like, I just don't see the point of that book or that chapter or that sentence. It was all very well researched, very well considered. If anyone is interested in the topic and wants to understand why the grid is actually vulnerable and how hard it is to repair, then you'll find it a fascinating book that is engaging.
That's fair.
Yeah. And there were things about the grid. There was nothing in it that I didn't already know. There were parts of it that reaffirmed something that I had recently heard, where I was corrected a while back by a former boss from when I was in the energy sector dealing with infrastructure, that there are actually, and I've just forgotten the name of them, but these extremely large transformers that for the most part are all made, the majority of them are made in Germany, and they have to be, much of it has to be handmade, and there's usually an 18 to 24 month lead time on them. And the other big problem with them is, even when you get them here after you've waited and they've come to the United States and everything, they're so big, our infrastructure is not actually designed to transport these things.
Great.
So getting them into place is kind of a massive nightmare. And the other issue is, because of the nature of the grid, and it really is one of those things, you'd have to read the book to fully get to appreciate the problem. And even having spent a little bit of time in the energy sector in infrastructure, Even I, in this detail, didn't know this much about it, like why it was such a bag of bees. Each transformer really on this scale has to be custom made for that exact instance because no two substations and power stations are essentially the same. So there's nothing can be standard. I mean, it could have been standardized, but nothing is standardized.
Right. It's all just old, and they never adapted to go to standard tech. Is that kind of a...
That's kind of it, but it's also, I mean, there is more to that. The power generation and power transmission is an extremely complicated science, and it's a very complicated proposition, and not all areas need exactly the same thing. It's all sort of disjointed. It really, you'd have to read the book. It is a very convoluted mess to try to fix, and it would have taken someone, a lot of very brilliant people working together in the energy sector to have foreseen the problem to begin with, to have then planned for it going forward and put forth standards.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of transportation is another industry. Big transportation is a lot like that too. You know, it is what it is. Overall, I would say the book is totally worth a read. You'll walk away with it educated. You won't walk away with it with a sense of being able to prepare for anything in a particular way, or really with being given any resources necessarily. So it's kind of just prepper porn.
Cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Hey, there's a place for that.
Absolutely.
I mean, from an entertaining book perspective, you did recommend, and you recommended this a long time ago to me, but Day by Day Armageddon.
Yes.
I finally read it. And I will say that I found the first book to be wildly entertaining and fantastic. I found the second book to start off like I really wanted to get into it because the way the first book ends / doesn't end, you want to get into the next one. And I know that you enjoyed it, but man, it fell apart about halfway in for me. And I think a lot of that had to do with I can do a lot of suspension of disbelief. I really can. I am really good at it. Like to the point where and TV shows do this to me also. Like I'll get through 2-3 seasons of a show, and then I'm like, you just took it that one hair too far. And I guess what happens is my suspension of disbelief is elastic, right? And it's not an inelastic thing. And for anybody familiar with economics, you'll get what I'm saying here. But it's this whole idea where, depending on the plot, it stretches. And if the plot starts out where it needs me to stretch really, really far, I'm cool with that. But if the plot starts out where, like, an example, I'm watching a spy movie, and I expect these spies to have normal things, and then all of a sudden, like 2/3 into the movie, the spy can fly. That's where, like, all of a sudden you broke the elasticity of my suspension of disbelief.
Mm-hmm.
And you went too far. And I found that that's what happened in Day by Day Armageddon. I truly believed that the people in the story could do the things that were happening until about halfway into the second book. And then I'm like, no, they'd just be dead now.
So I would have to agree. I really enjoyed the series. I don't think it's the most amazing writing I've ever come across. Mm-hmm. I felt the first book was really well written, and the strategy of the book, writing a person, which is I guess to bring listeners who aren't familiar with the book up to speed, the book is written in a first person essentially as a journal, in a diary that an Air Force captain. Yes. He starts keeping this journal as a New Year's resolution and continues keeping this journal into the zombie apocalypse. And going back to what you were saying a second ago, you're thinking zombie apocalypse, how do you break, that disbelief, that elasticity? He did it. He did do it. I would have to agree.
Like, I was able to stretch it through the whole first book, and I was like, this is awesome. And, you get into a story, right? And I'm like, I could totally see Aaron and I get through the zombie apocalypse like this. And this would be awesome.
With a giant slingshot.
Right, with a giant slingshot, and oh my God, a chance to use our SBRs. so sweet. and that got me through the whole first book. Like this is just cool, and like, yeah, it's nasty, but he survives, and I get it. And then he goes into the second book, and I'm like, all right, I'm still getting it kind of, but you're getting further away. And then all of a sudden it just goes, I almost, and I was doing an audiobook, and the audiobook, the reading is actually really good. So it's not an issue with the reading of it or anything. It's just, as the story's going, it just gets to this point where I think what happens is the captain survives one too many things by dumb luck.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, I'm done. And I think there's a lot of good information, honestly. Like, I actually think they share pretty well throughout that story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the information that's in there is pretty good. And I'm not saying it's a guide to survival or anything like that. I'm just saying it's not the most inaccurate portrayal of certain things beyond the zombie piece.
Mm-hmm.
But you get into that, the second book just lost me. And I know you enjoyed the second book, and I think they lost you on what, the third book?
The third book, they lost me. The fourth book just felt like, I had a fart in my head, and so I wrote this little short thing.
Yeah.
So the first book, for me, the first book was great. The second book, really great, until there were things I really enjoyed in the second half. There were things that stretched it too far for me.
Yeah.
But there was a period where the main character is totally alone. Mm-hmm. And to me, I found that part, like, that was really interesting. Now, that was kind of where they start, really stretching your belief too far, too fast.
Yes. Yes. It was the alone time. And like, for those of you who have read it, you'll know what I'm talking about. During that alone period, I think it went too far, too fast, and they lost me. I actually think I would have liked to have seen them explore it a little bit more from the point of view of being alone.
Yes.
The dumb luck of survival.
Yeah, and I think had they explored the emotional aspects and had him kind of lose his noodle a little bit more, would have been more interesting, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. And then that probably would have carried me into the third one, but that did lose me on that. And, that's all right, though.
Yeah.
There's plenty of books out there. And like I said, I recommend to anyone the first book. You'd been trying to get me to read it forever.
Mm-hmm.
It took me getting back on planes a lot to just do it.
Yeah. I think for me, I went through the entire series, and I've gone through the entire series a couple of times. Even though the second book and the third book really kind of loses me, I still enjoy the series as far as like zombie literature goes.
Yeah.
It is one of the better ones out there. And so just as a fun thing, I've listened to it a few times and I really enjoy it. But I will say, with reading it multiple times, there are more issues that kind of come up even beyond just the first time you read it. But it's still good. I would still recommend it to people again. Now, I will say, he did, and this is going to be a very short review of this, he did another book that has nothing to do with zombies, and it's called Tomorrow War. I freaking hated this book. I don't know what else to say. The marketing start off is, it's one man alone against a fallen United States. And I was just like, man, this is really hypey. I get into the book, and it might as well have been a Sylvester Stallone movie.
Sweet.
Like, it was just cheesy and stupid and just I just didn't enjoy it at all.
Did he take off halfway through the book and start flying?
Sort of. There's no super giant leap of suspension of disbelief. You're basically, from the very beginning, it's like, nope, you've gone too far, too fast, like right away.
Okay.
Right from the get-go. And it's all very, it's a super soldier and who has, at least in Fifth Element, where the colonel or whatever drops these, like, you're the only guy with all the qualifications for this mission, and he drops the piece of paper, and the piece of paper just keeps going and kind of falling out with Bruce, like, in front of Bruce Willis. Like, that's funny. Yeah. Like, they're making fun of it.
Right.
This is, no, he pulls out his own piece of paper and is like, look how long my piece of paper is.
That is a bad allusion to a really, really bad thing.
Yes. So
my piece of paper is so long.
my list of qualifications is so long, baby.
Exactly.
Yeah, I hated the book. I thought it was terrible, but it is what it is.
I'm not going to read that one.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, there's another book that I really didn't like. And now I do want to mention the first book since we already mentioned it, which is 1 Second After. Loved the book, thought it was great. I think the end of the book gets to be a little much, but it's like, okay, fine, it's cool. And at the end of the day, that is kind of where the nickname for the listeners of the show, the Roving Horde, comes from, was me actually making fun of that part of the book. But overall, really excellent book, really good examination of what life after an EMP would be like.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, actually. And I think you're right. They didn't lose me, though. Like, I think I went Mad Max.
Yeah.
Mad Max in terms of the roving hordes, but
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get lost in it, and I was able to carry through with my suspension of disbelief.
Yes, I would agree. I just felt it got a little cheesy, but overall it was good. Now the follow-up book which is 1 year after. I was really disappointed. It's kind of another book. It felt like a book that somebody felt like they had to write it or just wanted the publisher's money.
Huh.
It
Okay.
didn't. It was a well-written book because Forstchen is a good writer. It just didn't feel like a book that ever needed to happen. It felt forced. It felt like, all right, well, here's a book. And it has a cliffhanger at the end, so I'm sure there will be another book to follow up that. Hopefully that next one will be better. I really didn't enjoy 1 year after. I'm very sad to say because I really liked 1 Second After.
Yeah, no, I actually enjoyed 1 Second After. I did not read 1 year after.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just kind of, I think, I just assume that some of the sequel books aren't going to be good.
Yeah.
So I just stay away from them at times, especially like I 1 Second After I enjoyed. I thought it was a good audiobook. And so for me, I almost didn't want to ruin it. And I'd already heard your take on 1 year after. So just didn't want to ruin that for myself.
Yeah. So to get off books, what other gear and toys do we have around here?
Man, have you done any pocket knives this year, Aaron?
I did do a pocket knife. I've been good about limiting myself on knives. I went with the Zero Tolerance 0562 CF off of a recommendation from Marshall of goinggear.com, who will be on the show again soon to talk about camping toys. It is the carbon fiber front with the stonewashed titanium back. It was one of those things where essentially it was a birthday present. It was one of those knives where I already have enough pocket knives. I just wasn't going to buy myself another pocket knife, but somebody really wanted to give me a cool birthday present, and I let her, and this was it. I love this freaking knife. I kind of wish it was a little bit smaller, but since I don't have a traditional office job, it's actually okay. I've had it for 3 or 4 months now, I want to say, and it hasn't required any new sharpening. I've opened an awful lot of packages with it and boxes. I've cut a lot of rope and other random things, especially with my new the project that I've been working on since I got into the new house, which is running about 600 feet of hard network in this house, and have used that knife extensively during that project, and it's still just running like a champ. I love that knife.
That's awesome. I had to go the other way. You went, and I know it wasn't a intentional purchase or anything, but I needed something that was more office friendly, and I also wanted something. I think you and I both have probably got way too many pocket knives.
Yes.
But I wanted one that wasn't expensive. Like I wanted something that if I did lose it, and this is all relative, so for the listeners out there, don't attack me for saying anything on price here, but I ended up getting the Spyderco Dragonfly, but not just any of them. I got the one with the ZDP 189 steel, and it is awesome. I've heard things where the ZDP 189 is not as corrosion resistant. I've now had mine for about 6 months. It has accidentally been washed in the washing machine twice. It has gone swimming with me once, and I can tell you with absolute certainty there is no corrosion on that blade. It also has never been sharpened in that 6-month period, and it opens boxes and does all that kind of stuff, which normally dulls a knife terribly. It's been awesome, and it is much smaller than the knife you've got. To me, the Spyderco Dragonfly 2 is kind of the ultimate knife size. So I've really enjoyed it, and it's not that pricey. I think they're like $80 with the ZDP 189. So
that's not bad for what is actually a really nice knife.
Yeah, it's a great knife, and I mean, like it's just a Spyderco, but it's awesome, and it's little, and it doesn't intimidate people in an office setting. And it does all the things I need it to do on a day-to-day basis.
And at the end of the day, that's what really matters.
Exactly. And if I want to go bigger when I go camping and stuff like that, I've got plenty of knives for that.
Yeah. Almost too many.
The choices.
Yes.
Sometimes the choices hurt.
Yes.
You just have to pick the one you love best.
And that's always so hard.
It is. It really, really is. Now, I did mention dulling of knives.
Yes, you did. I'm excited to hear about this.
So, this year, I have actually bought 2 sharpening systems. I started out the year buying a Wicked Sharp system, which I happen to like a lot. For those of you out there, and I know there's a lot of people who are Wicked Sharp fanatics, it is a really neat system. You get a big block, and you've got these crazy little poles, and it makes sure that you have the right angle on the blade and all that stuff. And I've used it many times, and there are certain knives that I still own that I will probably only use the Wicked Sharp on because I just want that gentle touch.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple months ago now, I guess it's about a month, maybe month and a half, you would know even better than I on time because I've probably just been talking about it that long.
Mm-hmm.
I got the Ken Onion knife sharpener, the one from, I think it's Sharp Tools. It is awesome. It is one of the best knife sharpeners ever. And Aaron, you and I have had many a discussion about whether or not we do an electric knife sharpener. And for years, we both said, no, not a chance.
Yeah, especially after that class with, what's his name?
Kramer.
Yes.
Yep. The Kramer class kind of totally had me off the idea of an electric knife sharpener forever. But bear in mind, every knife maker uses electric sharpeners on their knives. It's just they know what they're doing. And so Ken Onion, who many of you know is a famous knife designer and maker, he came out with a fantastic tool for knife sharpening. And it basically, your blade's not going to get too hot. You're not going to ruin the heat treating on it unless you really do something crazy. But if you follow the instructions, and it comes with really, really clear, simple instructions, and some great YouTube videos out there, it is just a great tool. And so as the very first test when I got it, my wife has this really nice kitchen knife she likes that is, at this point, irreplaceable because they just stopped making it. But it's the one she loves, and it had gotten to the point where she had chipped parts of the blade edge.
Oh, that hurts my heart.
It had the tip at the very, very tip had been chipped off.
Oh, not the tip.
Yep, they took the tip.
Oh.
Just the tip, but it was still the tip.
Mm.
And I took that thing to this sharpener and put a whole new edge on it, brought the tip back, created a beautifully sharp, and I mean hair-popping sharp blade. It is fantastic, and it's holding up really nicely. So I, since then, have sharpened many of my knives on this, and they all come out with just really amazingly sharp blades. They hold up. I have not found any issues with, if you ruin the heat treating, you can actually really damage edge retention. I have found no edge retention issues.
Oh, cool.
On any of my knives. And so I am going to put, I know we haven't done a rating system or anything else, but if I had a 5-star rating system, I would give this thing 5 stars. And no, they're not paying me. I had to buy mine. If you are going to buy one, I recommend buying it on Amazon. The price is just better there than it is anywhere else. And it is awesome.
Very cool. Yeah, you've almost talked me into one. And I think the only reason I'm not sold on one yet is because I'm spending money on all kinds of other crap with a new house.
Exactly. Hell, this past Saturday, I think I sent you a message that I got really bored. And so I took a butter knife, and it is now an extraordinarily dangerous weapon.
I would imagine the missus was none too pleased with that.
It was actually a butter knife from a set that we're getting rid of.
Oh, okay.
So it was basically sitting in our garage ready to be donated. And I was like, rather than donate this particular one, I would like to see if I can turn it into a shaving implement.
Shaving with a butter knife. That sounds like a bad rock song.
It's the sharpest butter knife on the planet now.
Nice.
I'm pretty sure if I decided to take a little more time, I could have put a tip on it. I mean, like...
Wow. So, and I think what's neat, because you were saying you can actually change angles of knives with this thing and all kinds of other stuff.
Yes, you can change the blade angle, the edge angle, all that stuff. You set the angle and you can change it up because it comes with multiple belts. So you've got multiple grits where you truly can take some metal off that knife if you'd like to. You can change. They give you really good instructions on what speed to run the belts at, and it's very easy to set. It's just a really fantastic, simple to use tool for those of us who have lots of sharp implements. It can sharpen anything from a knife to a pair of scissors to an axe head, machete, whatever you've got. It sharpen and it's capable of doing all of them. So it can even do lawnmower blades.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. And I think...
So overall, I found it to be a pretty versatile tool, and I think it's like $129 on Amazon.
That's not bad at all, considering what it does, and also just in what it saves you in time, because while you and I are both very proficient knife sharpeners with stones and strops and everything else, yeah, we can do it, and we can do it really well, especially after that class.
Yep.
But it also becomes a time issue.
It is. It's a time suck, and we may be proficient in it, but us and I know a lot of you listeners have lots of sharp objects.
Yes.
And we've all collected them for years, and we want to keep them nice and sharp, and we like to play with them, and we cut boxes open with them, and we test how sharp they are on paper, and then you want to sharpen them up. I just found that this makes the process super fast and super simple. And then here's the other part. I have gotten blades where you just want to change it up, right? You've had it. You want to make it a sharper blade, or you want to make it a more robust blade because you're changing its usage. This lets you do that.
Yeah, and to be fair, that is something that is difficult to do, and again, really time consuming to do.
Yep.
By hand.
And speaking of time, like this is, I won't spend too much more time on this thing, even though I've fallen in love with it. To redo that entire edge, I was talking about that kitchen knife my wife had. To redo that entire edge and put a brand new tip on it was exactly, and I timed it from start to finish because I was curious. It was 9 minutes and 20 seconds.
Holy crap.
And I wasn't rushing myself. I was just doing it through the process. It was I had done a paring knife right before that, so I kind of felt comfortable with it.
Mm.
I was just walking through the instructions, and I was reading it. It said you do. And there are instructions for how to put a new edge on a kitchen knife. So I just followed those instructions of going through I think it's 12 passes on each side with each belt. And that took just under 10 minutes. And by the time it came out, it was beautifully polished. It was super sharp. The tip was back. I mean, basically the amount of money I saved with that one knife, this thing paid for itself probably 2 times.
Nice. Sounds well worth it.
Totally worth it. So highly recommended. I know that I've almost convinced you, Aaron. I'm sure I'll convince a couple listeners. I've almost become religious about it.
As soon as I stop buying Philips Hue light bulbs,
yeah, I hear that.
I will actually get one, which I always thought the Hue light bulbs were kind of dumb. And somebody gave me the starter pack as kind of a housewarming gift. And I put them in and then started playing with the geofencing stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, actually, this thing is really cool.
Oh,
And
just wait till you can create rules with your Nest thermostat.
yeah, that I haven't gotten into yet.
Away, your lights automatically go into vacation mode.
Yeah. I've set up scenes and set up geofencing, and I've set up different scenes for myself and for Jen so that I actually know when she's about to come in, and I know that maybe I need to stop, recording for a few minutes to allow her to come in and make noise and forget that I'm recording, and then I can remind her that I'm recording without having to then later go back and chop that part out. So the lights actually do change, and I get she's about a block away from the house now. And
it's awesome. You don't turn the porch lights red or anything?
No. It just kind of they just change in intensity. Like, oh, okay, she's about to come home. And I think the other nice part is for me driving up to the house, since I do have a ways before I actually get to the house, it's kind of funny just to turn the corner from a few hundred yards away. And as I start getting closer to the house, all of a sudden all the lights come up in the house. And it's nice because it's not just this cool thing. It's now I can actually see everything that's going on across the front of my house and across the larger part of my property as a whole from the front, so that I know what I'm walking into with the house. And then the other nice thing is it's just, it becomes really convenient. Like, okay, we've got and I didn't think I was going to get this goofy with it, but we now we're having dinner, setting. I'm watching TV setting so that it rearranges the intensity of different lights so that I don't get reflections off TV. And it's just cool. But the security aspect of it is really nice. That I'm really enjoying.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I love the security aspect of that. We've also gotten into, I know in our house, we've got the Hue light bulbs, we've got the Nest, but we've also gotten into some of the cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got the drop cams inside the house, but I wanted something outside that was easy to install. And we just got the Netgear Arlo. And I think I like it a lot. I don't think it works well as a single cam installation. I think you do need two cameras, mostly because there's too much of a time delay on the motion sensor to video record. So if I ran up to my front door and ran away, you wouldn't see me.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is put a second camera in that has the motion sensor further away. So the motion sensor on any camera can trigger other cameras to start recording.
Mm-hmm.
And that way, everything I've read basically tells me that's the best way to do it. But I love the concept of these wireless IP-based cameras. The other part of the Arlo that's really nice is it's battery operated. Mm-hmm. So every 4 to 6 months, you do have to change out 4 CR123 batteries, but there's literally no wiring at all.
See, that's really cool because like you and I were talking about the other day, I've been looking at the power over Ethernet systems because that is one of the big aggravations with all security cameras. You want to put up security cameras in your home and maybe even some outside your home. Like I have some areas outside the home I would actually like to be able to keep an eye on. And I know Jen really wants to be able to keep an eye on it, and everything I look at it, it's like, man, I got to run electric for that, and that's going to be a big hassle, and they're long runs of electric. Power over Ethernet makes that a lot easier.
Yeah,
and then it's not sucking juice on your wireless network, which for most people is not a big deal. For me, I'm always pushing such big files up and down with my network. It actually, I really want to limit what's on my network, the wireless network. So I've been looking at power over Ethernet. I haven't gotten into it yet. There will be a follow-up show, which will be kind of a home automation and gadgets for security show, which does kind of tie into the other show, which I will, at the end of this episode, I will explain what's going on with the other show. But for now, it's something I'm looking into. And you told me about the Arlo a while back to bring it back to what you're talking about. And you hadn't bought them yet. And I was like, wow, that's actually a really cool concept because, again, running power to these things and even running cables to these things can be a big pain in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah, and you want it to be simple, right? I mean, I think everybody listening to the show is willing to go out of the way to do a lot of things. You wouldn't be listening to the show and doing the things you need to in order to be prepared and all of that if you weren't willing to go a little out of the way. But it's always nice when you can simplify.
Yes. Absolutely. As someone who just spent about 15 hours running a hard network in their house, yeah, simplify is better.
I totally agree with that. So we've talked about light bulbs, books, knives, cameras. I'm gonna guess. I'm not even gonna guess. I'm just gonna throw it out there. We both did some short barrel rifle stuff this year,
Yes, we did.
and that's been a blast.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
I know we both have our. Not only did we short barrel rifle it, but we both got our suppressors, and we both went the route of 300 Blackout.
Yes, we did.
So in terms of gear, I will say there's two pieces of gear that stood out for me with my SBR, and that was I love my Silencer Co. Saker suppressor.
Mm-hmm.
It's just awesome. I love the thing. It's got some nice weight on it, but it's not too heavy, and it really does just make that thing ridiculously quiet. And then the other thing is, because the rifle is now ridiculously quiet, and those of you who are AR lovers out there know, the capture spring can be a little loud. It's when you have a suppressor, you hear it clinking, or at least I did. And maybe I'm just crazy, but I did go out and buy the JP Rifles silent capture spring.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like it. I love the thing. I think it's been fantastic. The rifle really does feel more solid to me. Like I don't have that clinking sound inside the stock. To me, it's kind of completed the rifle.
I would have to agree with that. On your recommendation, I ended up getting one. I love mine. And it is one of those, it's not a major upgrade as far as what it does for you, but it is one of those things where it's just like, oh, wow, this actually is the way the rifle always should have been.
It's almost like a lifestyle upgrade versus like...
Yeah, it kind of is.
It's like, yeah, I had a sofa before, but now I have a really sweet Italian leather sofa.
Yes. Yeah, it is kind of like that.
I don't know any other way to put it, because like it's not like the rifle functions better, or at least I don't perceive it functioning any better.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that it feels more solid and quiet.
Yeah.
And so I love that. There's, beyond that, I've just enjoyed having a short barrel rifle. I think for anybody out there who has the opportunity to go through that NFA process and do it, and I know that we're running into number of days before the rules are changing on us. But you can still do it now. If you get your paperwork in now, everything is the same as it used to be.
Yeah. And I think for mine, you went and you changed up an existing rifle.
Yeah.
And I went out and purchased a brand new rifle. I bought it as an AR pistol, and then submitted the paperwork to manufacture it and to be able to put a buttstock on it is the direction I went with things. I ended up going with a Radical Firearms 300 Blackout 8.5-inch barrel. It's a departure for me as someone who typically buy the absolute best you can. This one I was just like, you know what? I just went down and dirty. I want something that works. I want something that is good enough. For me, it didn't have to be the best. So I actually went with a Radical Firearms, and I'm really happy with it. I think it functions just fine. It's not it doesn't have the fit and finish of a Land Warfare or a LaRue, but at the end of the day, you pull the trigger, it goes bang, it's good enough, it gets the job done. I'm really enjoying it.
I'm right there with you. So on your recommendation, I went with the Radical Firearms upper on my SBR lower, and so I do have it on a Land Warfare lower, although I think as many of you out there know, it doesn't matter. There's just very little difference in lowers. My trigger's very nice. It's all Magpul furniture, but at the end of the day, it's pretty much the same as any other AR lower out there. But I did the Radical Firearms upper on it, and then I did a zero fail bolt and the BCM charging handle.
Mm-hmm.
And I like it. The setup is really nice. It was not overly expensive, minus if you take out the cost of the upper or the lower that I already had. Overall, building it out was under $400
mm-hmm.
To do the rest of it, and love it. And you're right, it is not the most accurate rifle I've got, but that wasn't really the intention. It's not inaccurate. I mean, to be fair, at about I'm probably getting, and this is without bench resting it and putting it in a vise and everything else, I'm shooting about 2.5 inch groups at 100 yards. So it's plenty good for an SBR.
Yeah, and for a weapon that, while it can reach out a lot further than most people think and touch someone, it's a close quarters weapon. It's an SBR.
Yep, but even if I were using it for, say, hog hunting or something like that, and I know, again, I don't want to hear anybody's arguments against 300 Blackout, that's fine. If I were using it for something like that, which I have not, but if I was, I feel like it's more than accurate enough to do that.
Mm-hmm. So I put in the zero fail bolt also. I really enjoyed that. And while I was trying to keep this a simple project, I did end up throwing a few extra goodies on it. I haven't changed out the trigger yet. That's sort of next on my list. But I did put one of the Olight M22 Warriors on it with an offset mount, which is, I love everything Olight is doing. I really enjoy it. It's supposed to reach out to about 300 yards, and now that I have basically 1,200 yards I could work with to test it, I will say it's not going to light up anything like daylight at 300 yards, but it definitely lights up enough something that with magnified optics, you could see what was going on out there at 300 yards in the dark. There is a newer version, an M23 Warrior, that apparently has a little bit more throw. But at the end of the day, you know, the M22 is what I already had. It wasn't enough that I felt like I needed to upgrade. I love the Olights. I actually have two of them. One that I keep in my nightstand, and then the other one that's on the offset mount on my SBR. The next thing I did to mine was put the Magpul MS4 sling in 2-point configuration on mine. I'm not a huge fan of 1-point slings, so I didn't put it into that configuration. I'm still very much, after Appleseed and everything else, I'm very much a 2-point sling kind of guy. The sling overall, I really like it. I think it's a neat sling. It offers a lot of a lot of configurations you can do, and a lot of configurations that are quick to switch between. So that part I really like about it.
Yeah, and I actually got that sling as well. I think there's a lot of slings out there. I agree with you. The 2-point configuration probably our Appleseed coming in. It's the fact that I like it from a rifleman's perspective. It lets me stabilize a little bit better. Mm-hmm. I've got 2-point slings on all my hunting rifles. I've got it on my 22s. And this lets me use it a lot like that.
Mm-hmm. Now, the next thing I did for glass was I went a little crazy, and
no,
and I threw an Aimpoint Micro T2 on the front of it. Now, I haven't done the LaRue mount yet for it, but that may come sooner or later. I haven't fully decided.
Are we doing that gear review next year?
Probably.
I also went a little crazy on optics, but I already had it, so I need to throw that in, because for anybody who's going to be like, yeah, that's kind of crazy, I have the Trijicon ACOG, and it's the 4X on there. I like it. In all reality, I think I'm going to end up swapping it out for a red dot of some kind.
Oh, really?
Possibly the Trijicon MRO.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for, even if I'm taking it out to 100, 150 yards, I don't need 4X magnification.
Yeah.
And it's heavy. So if you consider it on the weight of the overall SBR, and again, I could argue back and forth with myself, and I have. And I'm not going to swap it out anytime soon, because the MRO is not exactly cheap. And like you, I've got lots of toys I'm spending money on. So there's also things I need. Damn needs. Yeah,
exactly. And you know what? I've been hearing some really great things about the MRO recently, and I think it's a little bit cheaper than the Aimpoint.
It's cheaper than the Aimpoint. It seems to have a cult following. Like, I mean, the people who love it really love it. I haven't found any really negative reviews on it. Mm-hmm. So it seems to have a real following. People seem to love the thing. There don't seem to be any really big negative points. It is expensive, but not absolutely insane and terrible. It's probably not my next firearms related purchase, but it may happen sometime in the year.
Cool. So now, what did you end up doing for a stock on yours?
So I already had the Magpul. I cannot remember which one it is.
I think it's just the CTR, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
just the simple locking one.
It's just the simple CTR. I like it. It's the one that came with my Land Warfare. Great stock as far as I'm concerned. Nice, adjustable, fits me nicely. So I haven't had any issues with that, and I'm probably not going to swap that out. I've also got the Magpul grip on there. So
yeah, now I did swap out the grip for a Magpul grip on mine. I put a when I threw away the SIG arm brace that came with my as rifle when it was in its pistol configuration. I initially went with the STR Magpul stock. That's the one that has all the battery compartments on it.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was going to be cool. It doesn't fit 18650 batteries.
Huh.
And or you know what? I need to double check that now that I've said it. I'm pretty sure I remember it not fitting 18650s. And for me, there's only two batteries that are related to my rifle, and even to the flashlights I would have on me. One is an 18650. The other one is I believe it's the 2032 button cell batteries that go in the aim point and a lot of other things. And so, but the real issue I found was it was just bulky and it didn't feel good. And so I ended up grabbing an STR Magpul stock, taking off the STR stock, and just the STR stock just went in a box and is now on a shelf. And I guess, I don't know, I'll throw it on eBay or something or something. I don't know. But it lives there. And, you know, when it comes to the stocks, I really I'm liking simple is better. And I just kind of went back to basics with it.
Yeah. Simple to me, especially this SBR, seems to be the way to go. Like I said, I think you and I have come around on that on rifles in general.
Yeah.
Or pistols and rifles, that like at the end of the day, it's almost best to start simple and then build up from there. It's one of the reasons I think you and I have both become, and we didn't start out this way, but we've become really big Glock fans.
Yes.
That to me has been kind of the mantra. It's the other reason I'm going to throw this one in because it doesn't really relate to a lot of the other stuff you and I have done over the year. But I did get myself a second rifle this year, and I got a Marlin, the 336C lever gun.
Oh, you finally did it.
I did it. 30-30. I love it. It's awesome right out of the box. And there's people, look, I'm gonna throw this out there for all the haters who are hating the new ones, because I've read tons of reviews that, yes, you know, it's not the same as the old ones. I pulled the thing out of the box. It was smooth, and right out of the box, without any sighting or pushing sights around or anything else, just iron sights, drove the target down to 100 yards, and I was pretty much hitting center circle through an entire tube, so 5 rounds, just in the center circle and right on the edge of the center circle of a target. So it is as accurate as my SVR. It is an awesome, fun rifle to shoot, super comfortable. I would actually happily take this out to go whitetail hunting here in Texas, and it's just pretty.
They are beautiful rifles.
Yeah, they just are. They're just pretty. Walnut stock and a blue and blued finish. I mean, I almost went stainless steel, and I just decided I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm gonna go cowboy gun, it's got to be blue.
Nice choice, sir.
And so that was that. And at some point when we'll do like, I would love to do an ammo show with you, Aaron, where we talk about some of the different ammunition, because I have managed to put all kinds through that thing now.
Oh, neat.
And same thing with my 300 Blackout. So at some point we'll have to do that in the future, and just talk about ammunition.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I may have more to weigh in on with that, because I'm getting ready to run my SBR through a class with Dan Blackford, who we had on ITRH. He was one of the very first episodes, actually. He's former Secret Service. He was on Presidential Detail, and he was one of their lead tactical trainers for the Presidential Detail. And so I'm getting ready to go pump 500 rounds through the SBR with him and put it through the paces. And so I'm looking forward to hearing about your ammo choices, because a lot of what I've done with the ammo, I haven't tried out a lot of stuff. I just went with the Gemtech subsonic stuff for my good premium ammo and stocked up on that. And then I bought a whole bunch of the I think it was the Seller and Bots FMJ 300 Blackout, which is in supersonic. So I won't be running I won't be running my can in that class, but anyway, so I'm looking forward to hearing about the ammos that you've been running through lately.
Yeah, and I've tried a whole bunch of them. So yeah, we'll talk about that in another show. But overall, I will say this: most modern ammunition works well, and it works well enough. I think the rifles, they have preferences, but at the end of the day, like, just to leave everybody on the review show feeling decent about whatever ammo choices they're making, if you don't want to go spend money trying to figure out the right one, I have found that the differences are so slight. I mean, unless you are shooting like what I'd call like the super exotic race rifles, the differences in most standard rifles seem to be so slight that I wouldn't worry about it.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you're buying quality ammunition,
yeah,
from any of the major manufacturers, you're probably good to go. Now, I will say, going back to the simplicity, right? So I love my Marlin 336. I could probably talk for hours on that too. I will say, I've really enjoyed the Glocks, and I know you have gotten into the baby Glock, but the new baby Glock.
Yes, I have. I went with the Glock 43, and I freaking love it. I do find a lot of people have complained about the way it shoots. It is a very small gun, so it does actually require that you change your trigger finger position. You have to give it more trigger fingers. So essentially, if you're putting the trigger normally on the pad of your finger, you would actually need to put it closer to the crease in your index finger because it has a tendency, if you're a right-handed shooter, it'll have a tendency to go off left a little bit, and giving it more trigger finger closer towards that crease in your finger pulls it back into center of line where you're actually aiming. I ran a few magazines through it and was playing with different positions, and that was what I found helped the best for really bringing the rounds back into where they needed to be. And other than that, I love it. It's crazy comfortable. It's super light. Jen and I ended up buying, each bought one on the same day, and she loves hers. We both just immediately gave up our 26s, and the first thing she said is, "This is what the 26 should have always been." She loves it. It's light. Most of the time she's either in medical scrubs or in yoga pants, and she finds it comfortable in both. So that's been great for her. For me, it's been so great. I feel a little bad about this. I actually leave my Glock 19 home most of the time and just carry my Glock 43, even on days when I could actually carry the Glock 19.
That's awesome. I mean, I love my Glock 19, and I was totally anti-Glock person before. I tend to like pretty guns, but since I really am I consider myself these days much more of a rifle guy than a pistol guy. I've become very, very much a rifle guy, and to me, the handgun really has become so utilitarian that I love my Glock 19. I am looking at the Glock 43. You and Jen speak so damn highly of it that I can't help but look at it. I was going to look at the Kimber Solo as well, so I'm going to compare the two and kind of give everybody some feedback on my thoughts there.
Well, that'll be cool. Now, I did end up buying a new holster for my Glock 19, and I got the Safariland 6360 in honor of open carry, although I have not actually open carried out in public beyond my backyard, we'll say. And I will say, this is the holster that, or one really like this, should be the holster anybody considering open carry in any sort of environment where they're going to be around people. So anything not out in the country, on country land, this is the holster they should get. It does an amazing job of locking down the holster. I did have Jason tug me around, which he's not a small dude, and I'm not as big as Jason, but I'm not a small dude either. And so the holster didn't really go anywhere. It is a very different experience drawing from a holster with 3 levels of retention, as opposed to just a good old-fashioned Kydex holster that is basically retention 0 that just has kind of a friction lock. and doesn't actually mechanically lock the pistol in. It definitely takes some getting used to. I did hurt my thumb a few times trying to do this fast. It's definitely something you're going to want to practice with a lot. The downside of it is, and this is not getting into a discussion about the downside or upsides or any arguments about open carry itself. But the downside of the holster is that it doesn't carry the same way a Kydex, where it's high and tight to the body and comfortable if you're used to carrying a gun that way. This carries a little further out from the body. It's a heavier holster, and I found that I just felt the gun kind of pulling on me, if that makes sense. It's kind of like just all of a sudden I just have this weight on that side of my body. It was definitely not as comfortable as a Kydex holster, but again, I wouldn't use a Kydex holster if I was going to open carry. So
that makes a lot of sense, actually. I mean, like, I can imagine the comfort level would be different. You'd have to get used to it and train with it.
Yeah, a lot. You have to train with these a lot.
That makes a lot of sense. And if you're going to, you know what, for anybody out there who's going to open carry, as much as Aaron and I push training for concealed carry, I push it just as much for open carry.
Yep. So now going back to the SBRs for a moment, what did you end up doing for a case for your rifle? Or have you done one for yours yet?
So I have the same one you have, and I cannot remember the name of it right now.
The Bulldog?
Yes, I have the Bulldog. I've been looking at other ones. I actually do want to do a hard case at some point, mostly because I'm crazy. I'd love a hard case for my SBR, my Glock, a couple boxes of ammo, some spare magazines. I have this dream case I've been thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
But they get so expensive that in the end, I bought the Bulldog. It's a great case. It does everything I need it to do. And it's relatively gray.
Yeah, that's one of the things I liked about it. It's small enough, and it doesn't have different. It's basically just a small rectangle.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, that's part of the nature of SBRs is you get to do stuff like that. So if you kind of look at it, unless you're really a gun guy, you don't get that it's a gun bag.
Yeah. And I've taken just that to the range. So in that case, the SBR fits, my suppressor's in there.
And I think it holds, what, 2 mags in there?
Yeah, I fill up the interior pocket with mags that are just preloaded. And since I'm going 300 Blackout, it's not exactly the cheapest ammo in the world. I'll just say that's what I'm taking to the range, nothing more.
That makes sense.
And there's actually some really nice elastic bands inside of it that fit Glock magazines.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll put my Glock 19 in there also, or carry it, and just put some Glock 19 mags in there to make sure I get some pistol time as well. And that's it. I just take that to the range.
Oh, see, no, that's very cool. You actually do have a different Bulldog bag than I do, because mine doesn't have those elastics. It just has the pockets for 2 magazines.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if they updated it.
They probably did. I bought mine about a year ago.
Yeah, and I got mine right as our forms came in and taxed
okay. Yeah, they must have upgraded it. And I think they're pretty inexpensive. They're like $50 bags. I mean, as far as like gun bags go, they're pretty inexpensive.
Yep, in the grand scheme, I would say it was actually cheap. And yeah, for me, it ended up becoming just when I want to take the SBR out of decent range bag.
Yeah. Now there is a LaRue SBR bag that's
Yes.
come out fairly recently, and it's a really nice bag. But you start paying for the really nice, and it's kind of one of those things where it's like, do I really need another gun bag? And I know it's nice, but meh, this Bulldog bag is not the best thing in the world. But you know what? It works.
It totally works, and I will admit to everyone that I've got the LaRue bag bookmarked in my browser, and every now and then I'll pull it up on my iPad, and I'll stare at it, and I'll pretend to put it in the shopping cart, and I'll get all the way down to being ready to purchase it, and I'll just say, you know what? The Bulldog works.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know what I'd be getting for it beyond potentially a prettier bag, but I don't know if you've seen them in person. I haven't. And so I'm not really sure what you get with it.
Yeah. I haven't seen it in person yet.
And so I would love to do that. So we just jumped to SBRs. I want to jump back to Glock for just a second. So my 19 is a Gen 4.
Mm-hmm.
And I found the Gen 4 to really be pretty much the perfect pistol.
Mm-hmm.
But I went and got, because I got a wild hair, the Vickers Tactical slide stop.
Oh, did you?
Yes, and I installed it. And so I think that maybe if you have a Gen 3, and so having seen the Gen 3s, the slide stop is a little bit closer to the frame of the gun, that the Vickers would be nice on a Gen 3. What I will tell everybody, this is a personal review, just my feeling about it. I've actually removed the Vickers and put the stock Glock slide stop back on.
Really?
Yeah, and it's not that there's anything wrong with the Vickers. It just didn't feel right. I actually felt like the stock slide stop felt better to me. And so I didn't see a purpose for the Vickers.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I was kind of shocked because most of the stuff that comes out of Vickers I really enjoy. And I think, they make he makes great products. He's designed some really fantastic stuff. But at the end of the day, the slide stop just wasn't my thing. And it wasn't, again, not a problem. It didn't create any issues for me. It does get a little weird in some of the Kydex holsters because it just makes...
I could see that.
It just sticks out a little too far. But the biggest issue was I really don't find a problem with anything on the Gen 4 Glock stock. It just stock out of the box. They're really nice.
I would have to agree with that because I have a Gen 3 Glock 32, the 357 SIG model. I really liked it. For me, when I got a Glock 19 in 4th gen, Gen 4, I didn't find it to be that different of a gun. It didn't feel any different to me. I would just say the differences to me were minor.
Yeah.
Part of it was I didn't have a Glock 19 in Gen 3 to compare it to as far as the recoil management and everything else. And I was coming off 357 SIG, which is totally different round.
Yep.
So I didn't find the Gen 4 to be really anything special. And I almost never used the slide stop on it. It was something that I saw that Vickers thing. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. And then I thought about it. I was like, well, I never used the slide stop on mine. Or slide release, depending on how you want to phrase it. But that is interesting to know. And that's good to know about that it does have some issues with Kydex because, I love Kydex holsters. So
yeah. So for those of you out there looking to trick out your Glocks, this is just a product it's not that I don't recommend it. I just don't think it's needed. For me, it's kind of one of those things where luckily it wasn't that expensive. And so at the end of the day, I didn't feel all that bad about not keeping it. So I don't know, Aaron. What else you got?
So what else I got? I ended up, because I've been going crazy with the 18650 batteries and related flashlights, I ended up going with a VP4 battery charger from what is the name of this company? From XTAR, which sounds like the name to a weird B-list movie. It is an awesome charger. It has one of the dumbest but coolest features. It has a digital readout across the front of this thing. So for all 4 bays, you can see what's going on with the batteries, what amperage it's charging your batteries at, and how full or not full they are, and how far it's got to go, and what it's doing. It just doesn't tell you. The only thing it doesn't tell you is how much time it's going to take it to actually charge that battery, which would have been cool on these 18650s because they require a lot of juice to power back up. Now, there is a newer model that does tell you actual times and gives you even more crazy information. I have not talked myself into that one yet because I cannot find a reason to do it, because I do not find that I need to charge more than 4 batteries at a time at this point, since I tend to keep about 6 of these batteries charged at all times, 6 batteries outside of what's in my flashlights. So, but if it comes to it, I may have to, because I may need to know how much longer it's going to take that battery to charge. But we'll see. So that's pretty much it. It's simple. It does what it does, and it can recondition batteries and do all kinds of other things. So it's a great little charger for anybody that's getting into the higher end, or I should say much higher end batteries these days.
But I found that that is a feature that can be used on a lot of things. Just tell me how much longer it'll take to charge the device I want to charge.
Yes.
I'd love to see that on more stuff.
Yeah, and not being an engineer of any sort, fashion or anything, at least when I'm sober, the it's one of those things where you're like, how is that not on everything? Where you can tell me how long.
It's device dependent, and so the charger doesn't know.
Yeah.
So speaking of chargers, I have been a huge Anker fan, and I think it totally plays into the idea of being prepared.
Yes.
And so I have gotten Anker chargers in multiple. I've got multiple sizes of them at this point. I've even got one. For those of you who don't know, I mean, actually most of you wouldn't know. I'm a MacBook fan. I have a MacBook Retina, which uses a USB-C charging port. And I've actually now got an Anker battery that can charge the MacBook Retina fully and my iPhone fully. And I think I can do my iPad on top of that. And it's not that big. It's probably it's the length of an iPhone and a half, and it's narrower than an iPhone.
Yeah, I was kind of jealous, especially that you're able to charge your laptop, since I have a MacBook Air and it still is dependent on the super proprietary MacBook wall charger to actually give it juice.
Exactly. So I love this thing because it's fantastic. But for an emergency, I've made sure that Karen actually it's the smaller one, but it's also the Power Plus. And I think it's the 10,000 or something like that is the model. And she keeps that in her bag, and that'll allow her to charge her phone multiple times. And for me, the reason for that was she doesn't always remember to charge it every time she's used it. So I want to make sure that she can actually charge the phone a few times using that battery when it's dead, and then she'll always remember within the week to charge it. And that way, I know that when she's out, she's covered because she's got the baby with her. And if her phone does die and it's an emergency, she can charge up and pretty quickly get back up and running. And to me, that's peace of mind. That relatively cheap. I know the Anker chargers, like I think that the one that I was just talking about is less than $30.
It's really amazing how much they've come down in price.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah, because I think I bought one of the little Mophie chargers about 3 years ago. I was stuck in LAX getting back to Houston, and there were very little wall outlets, and they were pretty much all sucked up by teenage girls. And not wanting any legal issues from getting too close to teenage girls, I went to the vending machine, and I'd been meaning to buy one of these for a long time. And I think I've done a review of it before, but I love my charger, and I have actually found it to be an indispensable tool, because you don't always remember to charge your phone, or you get into situations where you're away from the ability to charge your phone for long periods of time. And it is really handy to have 1 to 2 extra charges with you at all times. I've even gotten one for Jen, and I think she actually uses that's how she charges her phone most of the time. And then, and then just recharges her battery when she gets home.
I've actually gotten to that point where my phone probably charges from a battery more often than it does from a wall plug.
Yeah.
And I end up just charging that battery all the time because it's a big battery. It's not small. But I do like their Power Plus line of batteries is the ones that I'd recommend. And they work really well. They've got a little weight to them, but they're not overly heavy for what they are.
Yeah. Well, to go back to tactical stuff for just a second, I have something extremely random in the Super Random Gear Show, which is tactical gloves.
Ooh, gloves.
So I ended up going with the Pig tactical gloves. Mostly because I liked their marketing and copywriting. It was quite hysterical. If you ever want a good laugh, go read any of their copy. It is hysterical. And as somebody whose real work background centers a lot around copywriting, you wouldn't get that from the show notes or the descriptions on the site. But anyway, it is what it is. And I loved it. And I thought, all right, I'll give these a shot. I really needed a new pair of tactical gloves. I had managed to wear out a pair of mechanics gloves pretty good. I love these freaking gloves. Now, I haven't really put them through paces yet, but these are probably some of the most comfortable, best feeling, most sensation for your pleasure kind of gloves that I've come across. And so I will be putting them through the paces in Dan's class, since they'll be going through about 500 to 600 rounds in short order of 300 Blackout. But so far, man, I love these things. the next thing I had on my list, and this one is going to sound really weird and it'll make more sense, but with new home comes all kinds of honeydew lists. And so I was at the hardware store and they were having a sale on DeWalt cordless 18-volt circular saws, of all things. And it just so happened I had need of a new circular saw. My old circular saw, the blade had gotten jammed into the saw somehow, and I couldn't get it out to put a new one even after being on the phone with these guys. So what would you need something like this for? Well, we're preppers, so it's all about acquiring new skills and being handy and doing as many things as you can for your own. And this is one of those things that if I needed to cut out plywood to cover up windows for a hurricane, this would be what I would use. I would not use this device. For bigger projects, I would go back to corded. I thought, man, this is going to be super handy, and it's 18 volts, so it's going to have a decent life. No, it really doesn't. If you're doing thin stuff, thin cuts, thin wood, it works. It holds a charge for a little while, but even that, it kind of wears out. If you start getting into half-inch plywood, you're gonna only cut about 4. You're only gonna make about a 4-foot cut into the wood before the battery really just doesn't have enough juice to eat that half-inch plywood anymore. Which, if you're going to put real plywood over anything like windows or anything like that for hurricanes or for zombie apocalypse or something like that, or roving hordes, it's going to need to be half-inch. So for little stuff, this is a good saw, but overall, I was not super impressed with it. It cuts well and it does a good job. It's just the battery life. It's just kind of the wrong battery and wrong setup for this kind of device, I guess.
What about body disposal? Are we good with body disposal?
I'll have to tell you about that after the show.
Perfect.
After the recorded part of the show.
Share that later.
Yeah,
I'm good with that.
But the short answer is yes, it does okay.
Yeah. On the theme of completely random. So this year, after living in Texas for the last 22, I finally went the route of a pickup truck.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that and the reason I'm bringing it up, it's only mildly random. Most of us that are into the prep survival community enjoy camping and we enjoy outdoor life. I think everyone I've run into enjoys some time outdoors. And I will say that when I first got the truck, I did it because I just wanted a truck. And I used the excuse of, well, I'll do more outdoorsy things if I have a pickup truck. And what I found is I'm actually doing more outdoorsy things. And I'm not sure it's because I have the pickup truck or because I've convinced myself that I should because I have the pickup truck, or what the reasoning is. But if the placebo's working, keep taking it.
Exactly.
And I've had a great time with it. I personally got the Ford F-150. I don't care if you're a Chevy person, a Ford person, or whatever. I just highly recommend a big gas-guzzling, American-made pickup truck.
Having been in this pickup truck, I will say I actually really, and having been somebody who almost always drove Chevys, and I actually couldn't care one way or the other about brands, but I really liked your freaking truck. I'm not ashamed to admit I was totally jealous of your truck. It is freaking nice.
And so Aaron, I've been driving some pretty nice cars for a long time now.
Yes.
And for the listeners, I've had them all. I have had some really just ridiculously nice cars. And I will say that this truck is possibly the most luxurious vehicle I have driven yet, and the most capable, maybe minus from the capability perspective. I did have a Land Rover Discovery, and it was probably actually more capable off-road than even the F-150.
Mm-hmm.
But this is plenty capable. I have taken it not down trails or anything like that, but I've taken it to campsites. And then one of the most amazing things is, as many of you may know, I've got a 16-month-old son, and the bed of a truck is the ultimate portable playpen.
Nice.
I can put him in the back of that thing, and he loves smacking the sides. He runs around, loves the sounds it makes. If you open and close the tailgate, He laughs, he giggles, he has a great time. And as most of you also, for those of you who have children know, outdoors somehow is a magical place for children. and it doesn't matter what's going on in the world. If he's outside and in the back of that truck, he is a happy little guy. And so it was possibly best purchase I have ever made in my whole life.
Now, to be clear, for somebody that's going to leave a stupid comment, we're not talking about the child in the bed of your truck while moving, right?
No, there was no child in the bed of my truck while moving.
Okay.
Yet. If he starts screaming a lot, but we'll make it safe. We'll bolt down a car seat with some really cool racing straps.
Nice.
It'll be awesome. Give him a helmet.
Some goggles. He needs some aviator goggles. Yeah. Wait, a snorkel?
A snorkel, a scarf.
Okay.
I was thinking very Red Baron-esque.
Yes. I don't know where I got snorkel from.
Yeah, no snorkels. Maybe. I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, maybe a snorkel.
Why not?
How much off-roading we're doing.
This is true. Sounds like something Jason would do to his daughter.
Yes. I don't, to be clear, I do not recommend anyone put a child in the back of a pickup truck that is moving. Aaron, I am disappointed in the fact that we even have to say that.
There's a lot of people these days, as my mom likes to say, the nerve of some people's children. So I just like to be clear about certain things.
Yes, to be completely clear, no, we are always safe. He has a wonderful car seat. I can do a whole show on car seats, but I think my wife is going to end up doing her own podcast on baby stuff. But,
very cool.
At the end of the day, I do love the Ford F-150. I think it, like I said, best purchase I've made in my whole life.
That's an impressive.
So much more Texan now.
That's a very impressive statement.
Yeah, I know. I love the thing. I mean, it even has the perfect storage thing underneath the seat. It just fits my SBR so well.
See, and that was one of the things, you showed me that, and I was like, I'm sold.
Like, everything about it, some Ford engineer somewhere said, you know what? I need a place to put my short barrel rifle.
Could have happened.
I hope it did.
Seems legit.
I hope that's how it went.
Yeah, I would imagine it did.
That's it. I've got no other toys. You may.
I have one last thing and a funny story to go with it. And it's actually something I've reviewed before, but I am going to give one more shout out because I had to buy a new set recently. I lost half of my old set because, well, it only comes with 2 parts. And that is the Bogota, I think I'm saying that right, lockpick set. And I got my original set through the actual manufacturer. And this time I got them from the guys over at ITS Tactical, to give Brian a shout out over there. And I love these freaking lockpicks. And I'm a huge advocate of learning to pick locks for legitimate purposes, of course, and for having a set. If it's legal in your area, be sure to check your own laws. They're one of those things that's sort of like carrying a pocket knife. You never realize just how much you needed it until you started carrying it. And recently, with the move and moving into the new house and still trying to get in and out of boxes, I will take full responsibility that I am the one that lost the keys to our mailbox. And so about every other day, I have to go pick the lock on my mailbox to get my mail. So they have become, they've at least saved me the hassle of having to call a locksmith and the expense, which probably would have been about $75 to $100 if I didn't know how to pick a lock, for them to open the mailbox and then take the lock and rekey it and go through all that. So in the meantime, while I'm bound and determined I will find these stupid keys, I go out and get funny looks from my neighbors as I pick my own mailbox lock.
That is actually kind of awesome, and I love the personal story associated with it.
Yes. And I think that's the last thing I have. I think we reviewed all of our silencers and everything else in the last one, and so I think that kind of wraps it up for this year.
Yeah.
At least until we get to your bullets extravaganza.
I can't wait to do a bullets extravaganza. I've actually been looking for an excuse to make some really dense Jello.
Well, see, now I have a whole plan, and I've shared it with you, and I don't want to give away the surprise, but I have a whole plan that involves Jello, and and suppressors.
Yes.
And that's all I'm going to give away. And it's a search for something in particular.
I can't wait to find out more.
Yes.
But yeah, bullet extravaganza. There should be suppressors involved. There should be exploding melons.
I love exploding melons.
Because how am I really supposed to know how effective ammunition is until I see what it does to a cantaloupe?
Agreed. And with that, John, man, it's been awesome to have you on an episode again. And
Thanks,
hopefully we'll have to make this a more regular thing. I know I'm going to send you a new microphone so that you have your own there in Austin so that we can make this a more regular thing and get a little better audio out of you.
You mean you don't want it straight from my iPad like this show was?
No, it's actually not that bad, but I think I am going to send you a microphone.
Deal.
All right, brother. Good talking to you, and thanks for coming on today.
Thanks, Aaron.
Before we sign off today, a couple of quick things. Many of you have been asking what's going on with the Safe House podcast and when it'll return. The short answer is I'm actually not sure. The original sponsoring company may renew, or another company may pick it up. Hoping to have that resolved within the next few weeks. There is a third option where instead of Safe House being a separate show, it actually becomes a weekly part of ITRH, where it's a whole separate episode every Wednesday. We'll see what happens, and I'll keep y'all updated. Next up, the ITRH t-shirts are in stock and ready to ship. Check them out through the gear shop and get yours while supplies last. I'm probably not going to print another batch for a year. When these are out, they'll be out. Show notes and links to everything mentioned today will be available at intherabbithole.com/E158. Finally, if you think the show gives you value, you should see what we do for the ITRH Roving Horde Armada. Check it out today at ITRH.net. Members get access to episodes the Sunday night before they air publicly, encrypted forums to connect with like-minded people, an invitation to the secret ITRH Armada Facebook group so you can chat with others about survival all day long, access to every episode ever produced by ITRH, including one that was never aired, a free copy of the book Owning Your Survival, access to a 1-hour emergency kits for bugging out and bugging in class, with special downloads and checklists. Plus, I'm adding new bonuses about every other month at this point. Visit ITRH.net today. Become a member. You'll be helping ITRH stay safe and sound. And with that, we wrap up episode 158 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.